This is a quick Better FAQ video to give you the timeline and the sequence of events for the formation of your new limited liability company. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll give you a questionnaire, gather some information. Very important that you fill that out, be detailed, send off the owner information link if there's more than one owner in your LLC. That's called a multi-member LLC if there's more than one owner. Single member if just one owner. And then with that information, what we will do is file the first piece of paperwork, the Articles of Organization, with the Secretary of State. That document typically processes in about 3, maybe 4 business days, depending on when we file it. Once we get that piece of paper back, we will get your EIN, which is your Employer Identification Number, from the IRS. That's like your business's Social Security number. You'll use it for taxes, employment, for contracts, for the bank. And in fact, then we send you those articles once they're processed by the state, because when we file them, they still have to get processed. We'll send you those articles with that EIN, and you can take it to the bank. Literally, you can take that to the bank to get your bank account. We do recommend that you call ahead because sometimes they'll request additional paperwork, but typically it's those 2 pieces of documentation. From there, we will then deliver, and sometimes we might deliver this next step before those other ones if there's a little bit of a delay on that paperwork being processed. But the next step is your internal governance paperwork. So with an LLC, we're talking about an operating agreement. Again, if it's a multi-member LLC with more than one owner, then that's essentially your partnership agreement. But it also includes how you operate the LLC, which is things like voting, if somebody wants to sell their ownership, if you want to close it down, liability, indemnification, things like that. It's really sort of an operating manual that your tax accountant and your lawyer probably are the ones that are going to use, but it's important for you to have it and be familiar with it, and it's a requirement in law that you have it in place. So that's the next piece of paperwork. So articles, EIN, your operating agreement. We may flip-flop those depending on the processing time. Then from there, you'll want to complete that operating agreement, which means sign it. All of the owners would sign that once you're comfortable with it. And then there's a few other filings that we'll do from there on out for you. A local business license, sometimes called a business tax certificate, is the next thing. That one's kind of funky because we apply for it and we pay a fee. Then they mail you a notice, and there's an additional fee that you have to pay when you get that piece of paperwork in the mail. Very important that you're able to receive mail at the address that you give us for your LLC so that you can get that notice, pay that, and finalize your business license. That also needs to be renewed every year, by the way. Now, if you sell tangible items, you'll also need a seller's permit, which we will apply for and obtain for you. Then you should work with your CPA to remit and pay your sales tax on usually a quarterly basis, but you can do it annually, I believe, or a couple other sort of junctures. So that's the business license and seller's permit, which come after the articles, EIN, and operating agreement. And then the very last thing that we'll do for you is your statement of information filing. Now, that is due at 90 days after the LLC is originally processed with the Secretary of State. And that's the filing where we're going to list out who those owners are, who the manager might be, the different roles that they have. And so sometimes the bank requires that document, and we can file it before the 90 days. We like to wait that 90 days in case there's any changes in your address or anything like that in that 90-day period. But once that 90-day statement of information is filed, you're all done. That's the LLC formation process, assuming, the operating agreement has been signed and those things have been taken care of. And it's important to also mention that that statement of information filing for LLCs is due every other year within 5 months before the month that your LLC was formed. Confusing, right? All that means is that if your LLC was formed in September, you need to file it 5 months leading up till September, the end of September. And when you work with us, we'll put a reminder in our system to shoot you an email and a text message 60 days in advance of that due date of that filing of that statement of information. We also put in reminders about your business license, which again has to be renewed every year, which means you'll pay that fee on that notice that they send you again every year. The reason we can't pay that fee for you in advance is that that notice is actually specific to the district within the county or city that you're in, and so it varies, and we can't get ahead of that. It's just the way their process works. So articles, then EIN, then your operating agreement, then your business tax license, maybe a seller's permit, and then lastly, your statement of information filing before 90 days.